Do you remember when you first played Elden Ring, or even when it first came out, and you were making your first character? You were giving them a fitting name, and you were just so excited to play the game for the first time. Thrown into a new world, completely foreign to you. Maybe you played old games and you know some of the rules, but you have to learn some new ones. Maybe it's your first game of the Souls series. This enemy is the first thing you will face either way, and the only thing you can really gain from it is it looks a little weird, it looks a bit ugly, and it looks kind of like a bug, but either you beat it or it beats you, and you are transported to a new area to wake up again for the second time. Now we actually can stretch our legs a bit and actually go out into the world for the first time, into the lands between. And the sight, it's just beautiful. It can give you chills the first time you see it. It's just so massive in comparison to what we know in the previous games. And right here, you see a guy, you're like, oh yeah, I might as well try talking to him. It's just a normal human NPC. What is he gonna have to say?
You are maidenless. You are fated, it seems, to die in obscurity.
Now, I know when someone's trying to talk that shit to me, and since Mama didn't raise no bitch, I decided to take out the trash a bit here. I didn't hesitate for a second to celebrate my victory against this guy. And we decided to actually look out onto the lands and see our first actual formidable foe. We don't know his name at the moment, at least when we first started, of course, but we know that this guy's gonna be tough usually. The first enemies like these in these games are always a knowledge check, usually. Depending on if you know the mechanics, you can either get past them or you die to them a few times, but the real choice here is whether or not you stick with it and actually take him out or just run past him. Either way is the right choice in my opinion, because you will get along in the game anyway. You either come back and take him out later or you take him out now. It doesn't matter a whole lot in the end. Either way is the right choice. And either way, we all make it into the Church of Ella here. We talk to the merchant, browse his inventory a bit to see what we can actually get out of this guy. You know, buy a few things that we think will be useful and actually set out on our journey, finally ready to see what this game has to offer. And it's a good thing to actually do, obviously. It's a big world out there, you just never know. Within minutes of taking out that white mask Vare guy, this happens.
Greetings, traveler from beyond the fog. I am Melina.
We were maidenless for all about 5 seconds in this game, it sure feels like, but hey, at least now we've got pretty bitchin' chick to have on the team, in my opinion. I really like Melina. After a while of exploring and whatnot, she offers to take us to the hub world, obviously being the round table hold. And this place is also pretty bitchin', I would say. It's pretty goddamn safe here, and there's not really anything out of the ordinary. All the folks here seem like, they have their head on their shoulders relatively straight for these games, and you're able to just set on out back again after a while. You find the first demigod, a shard bearer, and after not just finding him, but taking him out, is when the round table hold like actually opens up, in my opinion, and then you will be granted audience with this, the two fingers. Now I know what you're thinking. What the hell is this thing? Why the hell do they have this thing here? Well, this lady here is going to tell us about this.
I am Enya the Finger Reader. I interpret the words of the fingers, envoys to the greater will. Look there. The fingers tremble to welcome you, Shardbearer. Let their wisdom wash over you. Great Elden Ring, root of the Golden Order, anchor of all lands, giver of grace, wellspring of all joy. Until it was shattered, the tragic corruption of the Order has taken its toll. Across the realm, life lies in ruin, fallen to pieces. Foul curses and misery spread, unabating. But the greater will has not abandoned the realm, nor the life that inhabits it. So it is that the tarnished are guided by grace, called to act. Brave tarnished, your great rune is a handsome shard of the Elden Ring. Seek another of its kind to become Elden Lord and restore the Golden Order. Let the words of the fingers guide you.
Now, I know what you're thinking. This is some crazy talk. The fact that these fingers can even talk to these people while talking directly, they actually have to have people that can translate. But the bigger thing for me is the fact that she said that they are envoys of the greater will. Envoys are like representatives or messengers, right? And in this case, it seems definitely they're trying to like preach the greater wills, I don't know, will, I guess, on the lands between. And this is kind of weird to me because obviously they're fingers, right? Like what the hell? How did you even make these things, you know? Like where do they come from? How did they get here kind of thing. It drives me crazy starting to think about these things and ask these questions, but the answers are out there. It's just a matter of trying to find them. But where do you look to try and find out about fingers of all things? Something that is seen as holy in this land. To a lot of people, at least. It's just, where would you even start most of the time? But it turns out that the sorcerers are actually the key here. I know this might be a little crazy, but the stars are the answer, okay? The stars hold the key.
Earn the right to become Elden Lord. Now, seek the Erd Tree and an audience with Queen Marika.
Now, we are told to seek an audience with the Queen. We're in the holy capital, Lanedale, and in order to get to her, we have to go through quite a means of the city. But while you're searching it, you can easily find more hands. And not just like fingers, but like full on hands, alright? This is a place considered to be holy, alright? It's got the Erd Tree here. There's a place completely isolated almost, well not completely. It is harder to get here in Mount Gelmir than it is in Lanedale, okay? There are more hands here. I didn't remember to get footage of Carrion Manor in Liurnia, but there's so many finger creepers there. It is crazy, alright? The more you start to see these things, the more it starts to unravel, right? There are these huge towers in the lands between, the Divine Towers. One is at the top of them. 2 fingers, just like the ones in the Round Table hold. They usually harbor the great runes that are given to the demigods that make up the Elden Ring. I know this is just a bunch of mumbo-jumbo to people that don't know what I'm talking about, but this is a bunch of insane things that are starting to kind of line up with, like, how these things are treated and, like, you know, what people hold these things standard to.
Well, you managed to return. You know what this means. The Erd Tree has spurned you. The fingers remain still, shaken by this turn of events. They are busy consulting the greater will. When they are finished, the fingers will again offer their guidance. But thousands, if not tens of thousands of moons must first pass. No matter for me. But you, how will you ever manage to wait? My, oh my.
So, we have some questions, obviously, from everything so far. Like, why would it take so many moons for the greater will to get back to the fingers when they're direct messengers of it? And how would all this relate to the stars? Well, there's a figure we have to talk about when it comes to the stars. He's so important, it is insane.
Before we begin, allow me to paint you the full picture. General Radahn is cursed ever to wander. Eaten from the inside by Melania's scarlet rot, his wits are long gone. Now he gathers the corpses of former friends and foes alike, gorging on them like a dog. Howling at the sky.
You've defeated General Radahn, unlocking the stars. Thanks to you, Lady Rani's fate once again stirs, and the path to Nokron has opened.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would I show you opening cutscene for General Radahn, right? And then show you E.G., Ronnie's war counselor, talking about him after he had been defeated, right? And it turns out these two lines of dialogue are kind of important to, you know, kind of paint the picture about what this guy, Radahn, has done. He is named Star Scourge for a reason. He conquered the stars, and apparently, thanks to a few of the item descriptions in the game, I think it's the astrologer set and the telescope that you can get from Merchant Calais, they talk about how, both of them talk about it, the stars are no longer holding fate, like cradling it. That's for the astrologer one. And then the telescope talks about how the Golden Order had basically stopped what the stars were doing with fate and all that. Radahn is a Golden Order fanboy, so it makes sense that he would be the one that they are referring to here, it is talking about. But this man mastered gravitational magic as a young kid to be able to challenge the stars and to be able to stay with his donkey or his horse, Leonard, I believe. This man defied fate itself, defied the greater will itself and what it wanted for the lands between. But for the longest time, we didn't know why. And we know now with the DLC, which I'm going to be talking about a bit here, so spoilers, obviously, for anybody that hasn't fully beaten the DLC. I'm mainly going to only be talking about a little bit of the main, obviously, at the end, but there's a side story in there that I need to talk about. It's super relative to all of this conversation on fingers and all of that. Alright, so you've been warned, spoiler warning for DLC going forward, okay? Things I had forgotten to mention about Radahn just before this, obviously, before we get the spoilery stuff for DLC. This guy is Karian royalty, son of Renala, queen of the full moon, all this noise, you know what I mean? Like, this guy is a pretty goddamn big deal around here before he conquered the stars. But after that, he became a legend with how he had defied fate fully. And I think this guy knew a lot more than he let on. I'm gonna be honest with that, because nobody gets so pissed off at the stars that they're willing to fully conquer and stop what they're doing. It's one of those things I can hardly fathom, you know what I mean? Like, this guy is that pissed off that he is willing to go toe-to-toe with the cosmos. But To be fair, we have seen things falling from the stars here that are detrimental to the lands between, so it makes a lot of sense why he would at the end of the day. Here we are riding up to the Cathedral of Manus Matter, and there's a fella in here we need to talk to.
Well, we don't often receive visitors. I am Ymir.
Now, this guy, he tells us about a few things. Sure, he gives us a map and stuff to go to these ruins, but he also can sell sorceries. But the more important thing to me is he says this.
I, too, am a glintstone sorcerer. We study the stars and examine the life therein. Are you familiar with our findings? Long ago, we began as stardust, born of a great rupture far across the skies. We, too, are children of the greater will. Is that not divine? Is that not sublime? And yet, none can fathom its implications. Its utter brilliance. Oh, yes. Do mind your feet around the church. You wouldn't want to hurt the little boy.
Did you hear what this man said right there? I didn't understand it at first, but after I came back from the mission he gave me, I understood clearly.
Oh, there you are. The exalted timbre of the bell has reached these ears of mine. Gracious, the starry sky is wondrous tonight indeed. Only your fate shines brighter. Now, these are for you. Think nothing of it.
This man is holding a baby finger creeper. Now, this isn't nearly as important as this question he let me ask him is. Listen to what he says.
I fear that you have borne witness to the whole of it. The conceits, the hypocrisy of the world built upon the Earth Tree. The follies of men. Their bitter suffering. Is there no hope for redemption? The answer, sadly, is clear. There never was any hope. They were each of them defective, unhinged from the start. Marika herself, and the fingers that guided her. And this is what troubles me. No matter our efforts, if the roots are rotten, then we have little recourse. Ever young Mikola saw things for what they were. He knew that his bloodline was tainted, his roots mired in madness. A tragedy if ever there was one. That he would feel compelled to renounce everything when the blame lay squarely with the mother.
Now, this guy's missions were all about going to finger ruins that literally look like fingerprints on the map and ringing these bells or whistles or whatever the hell they are. These places are infested, obviously, with finger creepers, and they also have giant fingers growing out of the land itself. It's a big kind of what the hell kind of moment when you get to these places, but they're so unique that there's got to be some kind of huge implications about what's going on here, right? And it's kind of hard to say, but these places are definitely like a breeding ground for some kind of fingers, right? Because there are like eggs petrified into this place. I don't know how it is, even after looking into all this. It's still a mystery, believe it or not. I'm just trying to go off of what the game has given us. But anyway, after looking at those two ruins, oh, oh Ymir, however we want to say it, this man had finger like ruins underneath the cathedral. You go up and you hit this whistle, and then you are teleported into a whole new place. It almost feels like we're underwater or something here, but the more important thing is that creature you see at the end there. What even could this thing be, you know? Now, what you're watching here, footage-wise, is my first fight with Meta, Mother of Fingers, my first encounter with her. It is far from ideal, but it got the job done in terms of what was going on. Her impression on me is a lasting one. She is the missing link to a lot of the questions that we've had over the years about the origins of the fingers. Where they came from, why they're here, all these things are answered with this one boss, thanks to the remembrance we get after we kill her. Well, I don't really think she fucking dies, honestly, because as you'll see when the fight's over, she doesn't just fade away in ash like the other bosses. So I kind of feel like Meta isn't dead, but we get a little bit of information about Meta herself, obviously, and the Greater Will, a hint of like how it treats the things that it sends down here. Because that's what Meta is. She is a falling star. In fact, one of the first ones, if not the first one, that landed in the Lands Between. Just like Astel's falling from the stars and leveling cities, you have one here that births fingers. It's a weird thing to even say, alright? Here was the item description that says Meta is a falling star, by the way. And to think that this thing is from space, sent here by the Greater Will to, I can only imagine, set up the very foundations of what it was going to start doing with the Elven Beast as well. And what it started doing with the guidance of all of its fingers to all the demigods, Queen America, everyone. Meta here plays a pretty huge role in the story, even if you don't know it. You know what I mean? And looks like she's just lurking underneath it all. Now, even though Ymir got us on this path, he isn't exactly the happiest camper when he learns that we have taken out the Finger Mother. In fact, he actually loses his mind a little bit.
What have you done? You've wounded Count Ymir most irreparably. Just that he wishes for you.
Now, earlier he talked about how the Finger's mother is rotten, everything is rotten, and there's nothing we can do, but yet he gets mad that you do something about it. You don't fix it, but you do something about it, you know? He was trying to nourish them.
My dear star, a fine mother. You will be.
My shining star, grant me a mother's strength. Look here, at my fingers. I will be the true mother. And
So, even though this has been just a roller coaster of emotion trying to figure out everything that I could about these fingers, the DLC shows us that the fingers can be made by people as well as Meta, obviously. So it makes the question of like, who makes a lot of these fingers? In the very beginning we thought they were tied to Rykard because of the rings on his hands and the rings on the finger prickers. But now we have answers to like, at least we know people can make them and other things can too, but we just don't know a full process other than like you can see Ymir like birthing them all the same, just like Meta did. But we don't know if it's like an understanding of the cosmos that takes it, the prerequisite that is to do this, or like what? Because there's also a little bit more evidence for other people making fingers that you kind of wouldn't expect at the end of the day, but we'll get there when we get there. We've only talked about the two fingers and some of the finger creepers, which are just, you know, a set of hands, obviously, but there is another section of fingers, believe it or not, to talk about in here. And believe it or not, they actually are a little crazier, I imagine, than the normal ones, but there's not nearly as much lore surrounding them that you can just tangibly find out there in the game, in my opinion. It's very few and far between. You have to kind of dig around deep, and I guarantee you I've missed a lot just by looking here and there, too. I mean, I know I've missed it. It's insane how much there is overall about just this one thing. Now we'll go back to the base game for a minute, underneath the Lanedale capital city. In the deepest parts of its sewers and catacombs areas, there's a door. If you were to strip all the way down and approach it, you get this neat little cutscene that plays when you open it. That, my friends, was the Three Fingers, host of the Frenzied Flame, interacting with us, making us the host. I still, to this day, don't know much about these things, how they're made or anything. I can only assume, right? And I don't like to make assumptions, I like to present what the game gives us, right? And after a bit of digging, we can find in Midra's Mant in the Abyssal Woods in the DLC. He has this room behind his painting with him and Nanaya, I think her name is. There's a room in here with a bunch of tarps covering a bunch of cobwebbed up stuff. Under these tarps, you can see what looks like fingers from the finger ruins. You can see it just barely when I poke through the torch there and I try to get at least some kind of view in there. But there are eggs in here too that look like they are petrified. They've been here that long, they're like almost brittly stone. It looks like if you were to touch them. It's so hard to even think about some of this. Like, Midra is a Lord of Frenzied Flame as well. Why would he need fingers and their eggs unless he was trying to make three fingers? You know? It's the only thing I can think of. If you expose the fingers to the Frenzied Flame, maybe it grows another finger and it becomes the host of one, I guess, the host of Frenzied Flame. Like, I don't know. It's hard to go off of that because that's purely speculation. Obviously, this is not said up front anywhere, okay? I'll say it right now. Now, aside from what feels like me just rambling about fingers for the better part of 20-30 minutes, what does all this mean, really? I don't know. That's hard to say. I mean, I'm really just trying to present the facts, I guess, to the information that I've dug up over my time of playing. What we know so far, though, is Metter obviously makes the fingers, so maybe she makes, like, certain ones that are better than just finger creepers, right? And those are the ones that are passed down to, like, the demigods and Marika herself and all that, so that they can actually, influence how everything is done out here because they're talking to the basically the people in, the most power, I would say. It's insane how this is going down. The greater will trying to basically influence everything, even with the greater will trying to decide what the entirety of the lands between is doing. It still abandons it after the shattering. It abandons all of the life it had given, and it left them to rot, essentially. It's insane to think about, actually. So to circle all this round, I think that Radon tried to stop the greater will from telling him what to do, basically, with Mikola trying to make him his consort and everything, because that early part was probably, drawn to conclusions with the whole, like, fingers telling them what to do, and it's like, this is probably what we should do kind of thing, so Radon probably sealed the stars, under his power, completely stopping fate because he didn't want to be Mikola's consort, which is kind of crazy to me because it does say he did that in his youth, and they probably made that whole, like, deal when they were young, so it's crazy that that kind of lines up with all of this, too.
Our art draws upon the powers embedded in Glintstone. But what is the nature of such power? Glintstone is the amber of the cosmos. Golden amber contains the remnants of ancient life and houses its vitality, while Glintstone contains residual life and thus the vitality of the stars. It should not be forgotten that Glintstone's sorcery is the study of the stars and the life therein, a fact lost on most sorcerers these days.